everybody, it's Jules here, and I'm going to do a first trimester of pregnancy overview for you. I have been recording some memories and things through this pregnancy journal I got for my birthday from my sister-in-law. And then I obviously had some stuff in my agenda, mostly about my cycle and then like some appointments and whatever. So I kind of compiled them all and put them in note form, and I hope this doesn't take too long because I tried to film this before and it was really long. So we're going to fast forward back to the end of May, and it was over May 2-4 weekend that I thought I just had the typical PMS symptoms. My husband and I had been trying, but after a couple, negatives, you're like, okay, whatever, so I'm going to get my period, and that's kind of the attitude I had about it. So I was, a little bit weepy, a little bit moody, but it was kind of nothing out of the normal for me. And I took the first pregnancy test on Monday, May 27th, and it would have been my 34th day of the cycle. So my period was a little bit late at that point, because I was expecting my period any time after the 30th day, basically. So at that point, I was kind of like, this is looking kind of suspicious. But I was waiting to the end of the weekend, I think, to kind of be like, okay, this is when we're going to try. So I took a dollar store test that I had. The way those ones work is that it's one line always shows up pink, and then if the second line shows up, then you're pregnant, but if no second line shows, then you're not pregnant. So a faint second line showed up, and I was like, what does this mean? Like, I don't know what this is, and blah, blah, blah. And my husband's like Googling it, and he's like, well, a faint positive, still a positive. Babe, I think we're pregnant, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, well, I don't know, like, it's not very confirmed. Let's try again tomorrow. Because I was so intent on having the early morning urine, I thought that would be more effective or whatever. So the next day, we tried again with a dollar store test, and it was the exact same thing. And he was like, well, babe, you're pregnant, I'm pregnant, that's it. I was like, well, I don't know, I'm not really, convinced. And for me, it was like I needed to see the proof, right? Because I was pretty much assuming I was pregnant at this point, but I guess it's like a bit of denial or something. So later that day, I went and got a clear blue test. It shows the kind of frame of mind I was in because I got a test with the 2-pack, which is ridiculous because if I already had like 2 faint positives, I would probably only need 1 digital test to confirm that I was pregnant. But I got the pack with 2 just in case for whatever reason. But sure enough, that Wednesday morning when I took the test, the digital one said pregnant 2 to 3 weeks. So that was really exciting. And I think the first person I told, obviously aside from my husband, was my sister. And then I did tell my other 2 sister-in-laws as well. But we decided to wait to tell everybody else until the end of the first trimester. So I went to the doctor the next Monday. It was June 3rd, and the urine test confirmed that I was pregnant with the doctor, and she dated me 5 weeks, 5 days if I had a 28-day cycle, which I don't, so we'll get to that later. So that made my due date January 29th, and that was really exciting. So if you had watched any of my previous videos from that time, around April, May, you would know that I was doing a cleanse, a dietary cleanse. It was for candida yeast, and so I had a bunch of food restrictions that I had been doing up until that point. So all of May I was doing this really restrictive cleanse. And then I realized, well, if I was pregnant, I should probably have some of the things I was avoiding, such as dairy, because I know the calcium's important for the baby, and fruit, because there's a lot of, vitamins and minerals or whatever in fruit. So I cleared that with the doctor. She said it was fine to, stay off the bread, because I wasn't doing yeast, obviously, and the sugars, she was like, yeah, well, it doesn't hurt to stay away from sugars, but I should have some dairy and fruit. So that is where we left off. So in week 6, I had some blood work just to make sure everything was good. I think it was just the typical stuff. And when we reviewed it later at the doctor's appointment, she said that I had really high iron. And she was like, does that run in your family? Which is really funny because when I was a teenager, I used to have low iron and I used to take supplements. So I just thought that was funny, and maybe it's because I had been taking the prenatal vitamins for a while, but I'm not sure. In week 7, I was starting a class. And I was in a classroom, actually it was a hotel conference room, 4 days a week from 8:30 to 4:15 p.m. So this was kind of a blessing and a curse because it was great that I was pretty much doing nothing all day except sitting there, so I could eat and I could go to the bathroom and I could do whatever I needed to do, rest during those early pregnancy weeks. But at the same time, I had to get up really early, and I found the earlier I got up, the worse my morning sickness was, because all I felt like I wanted to do was sleep in. So I sort of took my time, was on my own schedule. I don't think I ever showed up on time for the class. I was like half an hour late probably every day. But it's what I needed to do. So I got up and I had a banana basically before I could shower or do anything else. And it kind of gave me that energy to get to class. And then as soon as I got to class, I would eat, and then I would be like snacking all day. So for me, my morning sickness wasn't, terrible, throwing up, anything like that. When I woke up, I just felt terrible. I kind of was like a hangover. Like I just didn't want to get out of bed. Sleep seemed like the only option. I didn't want to eat, but I forced myself to eat. And then I was just so tired. So that was basically what week 7 was about. So I just wrote down, could control sick feeling with frequent snacks, and I peed frequently. Back in week 8, I think we had the midwife confirmed. So as soon as I found out we were pregnant, I applied at 2 local midwife offices, and I got accepted into both, which was really, really exciting. And I chose one over the other just because of the certain hospital that I would be delivering in. The way the receptionist had talked about the rights that those midwives had at the hospital and their relationship with the doctors seemed really, really positive, while I didn't know as much about the other hospital and the midwife's relationship with the doctors there and stuff. And I just figured, I should make this part of the experience really positive. And if they are known to have good relationship with doctors, and it's actually I looked up online, I think it was like a really good maternity ward in all of my province or Canada even, I'm not even sure, but anyway, it made me feel really confident to go with this one midwife office. So I was so excited about that, because really I couldn't imagine delivering without a midwife. That was the only option I had ever imagined all this time when I imagined my pregnancy. So that was great. People always ask about cravings. I wasn't really craving anything per se, but the thought of being on the restrictive cleanse was so upsetting to me. I'd sit there and be like, I can't believe I did that. Why didn't I eat all of this before? And yeah, so I was definitely a picky eater at that time. I wouldn't call it cravings per se. Like sometimes it'd be like, oh babe, like we have to go to this chicken restaurant. I really need chicken, but it's not like the craving lasted. It was just like I didn't want to eat anything else, but I could tolerate eating chicken at that time. So, that's where we would go. But I wrote down that I did have some cinnamon raisin bagels with cream cheese. I guess because I hadn't for a long time, and that is what I felt like. And I also had some black tea, which I hadn't had for a long time. So because of the cleanse, I was supposed to reintroduce these types of foods slowly, like the wheat and the caffeine, but I found it really hard because I wanted everything available to me, and I wanted to eat anything when I wanted to eat it. So it was pretty difficult. Also, my birthday was that weekend. This is the end of June. We're still in week 8. And so I didn't want to be a picky eater at the cottage when we were having the party and everyone was going to be there. So I basically ate whatever I wanted then. And it was actually really great because of the cleanse. That was my excuse to not drink, because I didn't want to tell any of my friends at that time that I was pregnant. It was still a little early for me. And so I was like, no, I'm coming off the cleanse. I'm not really into introducing alcohol at this time and whatever. So everyone understood, and I kind of flew under the radar. So I was kind of happy about that. In week 9, I was in my final week of the classes. So again, same routine, eating all the time, peeing all the time. And so tired. And I guess it was a mixture of having the early wake-up time and the new kind of routine I was in, going to school, but I was definitely asleep by 11:30 every night. Like, I was so tired, really didn't do much all day. I came home and I crashed. I'd watch like some programs on TV. I was cooking less, my house was less clean. It was just a pretty draining time in my life. We had a dating ultrasound. I don't have any pictures from that. It was just the basic like white uterus and like little black dot that was the baby, but we could see the heart pulse, which was really cute. And at the ultrasound, I was dated 8 weeks, 5 days, when I thought I was 9 weeks, 2 days. So that kind of plays into things a little bit later. So in week 10, I was supposed to see the midwife, I believe, but I moved the midwife appointment because I was dated less than what I thought I was at, and they wanted to see me at 10 weeks and whatever. So I'll kind of jump ahead. We realized that it's because I didn't have a 28-day cycle. It was more of like a 30-something day cycle. So they just, my due date was changed to February 1st because it kind of matched everything a little bit better with the dating ultrasound and kind of the way my body was working. So My due date is now February 1st. But when people ask, I kind of just say the end of January because it kind of covers it all. Because I don't know if I say February and then it's just like, no, it's like February 1st. It's right there. So whatever, the baby's going to come when it's going to come anyway, right? So anyway, week 10, I was studying for the exam for that course I was taking. It was really hard. I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't find the energy to focus. And then I was so tired and I was always hungry and I always was getting up to pee. So it was so hard to just sit down and study. But I did take an exam that Saturday. And we'll get to that again later. It's a bit of a story. So in week 11, I had another doctor's appointment. I guess it was my last one because I had the midwife care and I didn't need to see a doctor anymore. And I think in that appointment we were just discussing the blood work or something. It wasn't anything big. But I did have my midwife appointment and I got to meet my secondary midwife. The way they do that is that there's a primary midwife, a secondary midwife, and you know, if your primary midwife can't show up at the birth, it's the secondary midwife that becomes the primary midwife, and then someone else fills in. And so you get to know them both through different appointments, and I didn't get to know her that well during that appointment because they were mostly asking me questions about my history and whatever, and also there was a midwifery student in the room with us, and she was doing most of the talking, but that's fine, there'll be a chance to talk with her again later. I was sleeping in, so I could really control my morning sickness that way, and I was still eating super regularly. So if I started to feel sick, I'd have a little snack, and then that was that. So I was really lucky that way. So I was starting to get the bloated tire belly, I call it. I also called it a pooch, which my husband would dispute me on. He's like, there's no such thing as a pooch. He's like, I think you mean a pouch. And I was like, no, like a belly pooch. Like it's just that little like burp over the top of your pants. So I was kind of sad because I felt like I couldn't wear any of my summer dresses because they all have like this natural waistline. It cinches in and then it would be like so obvious where my little belly was, and it just wasn't how my body type usually is, and I felt like people were looking, and I was a little bit paranoid about hiding it all because I was still waiting a few more weeks to announce the pregnancy. So really, in the long run, it's not that big of a deal. I could wear pants easily and just wear a top over it. I wouldn't like tuck the shirt in or anything, but I still had lots of options for clothes, so no problem with that. In week 12, I could sense my energy was really picking up. I could keep the house clean, I was cooking a lot more, so that was really great. And I was feeling really good, and I was sleeping in, which was really helping the situation a lot too. We went to baby's first concert. We saw Pearl Jam in London, Ontario, which was really fun. But my energy was super low, and it was still fun, but it was just a different concert experience from what I was used to because I had to sit, and I just couldn't do what I usually do at concerts. So it was less of a rock out experience and more of like a mellow experience, but that was fine. We had a 12-week ultrasound, which was really, really exciting. It was actually like a pretty formal ultrasound. It was part of the IPS testing for Down syndrome, spina bifida, and trisomy 18, which we're all clear for, by the way. I'll just put that out there. But it was so fun to see the baby on screen, just moving around. It was like in this no gravity zone, just like bouncing, and it kind of reminded me of like being in a ball pit, because it just like fling itself back and just do whatever it was doing. So that was really funny. And we got some pictures, so that was exciting, our first little pictures, and I'll insert a couple here. And then I wrote down that I was so sad I failed my exam. I needed a 75 to pass, and I got a 73%. So that was just like such a brutal moment, and I really didn't want to study again, but I was forced to. So I guess it was a combination of having worked really hard and, you know, expecting to pass, and then the pregnancy hormones doing whatever they were doing to me. But I was so inconsolable, and my husband was confused. Not confused, but he was just like, you know, it'll be okay, you can take the exam again. But yeah, studying was not on my list of priorities at that time, but I made room for it. In week 13, we told our parents we were pregnant, so that was exciting. I told my parents over a family dinner. We had everybody over, and so I guess my brother and his girlfriend and my parents still had to find out, and I gave my mom some books and I put the ultrasound pictures in between, and my dad was sitting right next to her, so she's looking, and that was really, really exciting. It was a nice moment. My husband's birthday is at the end of July, and that is when we had planned pretty much from the beginning that we would tell his parents. It was kind of like the safe zone. and it was really exciting. We wrote Happy Birthday Dad on his cake, and we kind of waited for his parents to notice. This is something I had arranged with his sisters that knew, and it was pretty funny. Even after his mom had read the cake and, you know, was hugging us and getting all excited, his dad was still like, what the hell is going on? So that was really funny, and it was a nice day had by all for sure. The last note I wrote is just still wearing the looser tops because I couldn't wear my dresses, and I mostly fit into still everything at this point, but the pooch was not very flattering in some outfits. So there was that. And in week 14, I was just studying, and I found a lot more energy, I guess because at this point it was like now or nothing, I have to do this. So I was concentrating, and I would bring my snacks to the library and whatever, and the pressure was on, so I had to do it. So I did pass that exam. I took that exam the morning of my grandfather's 80th birthday party, and we got to tell him at that point he was going to be a great grandfather, and then we also got to tell my aunt and some other extended family at that point as well, and it was really happy occasion. So that is it for the first trimester overview. Overall, it was pretty great. Couldn't complain too much. The worst thing that probably happened was failing the exam and having to rewrite it again, but really everything was manageable, and obviously we're over that hump now. So the next video is a 15 to 20 week overview, and then we will be doing it weekly after that, if I can stay on top of it. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you very shortly. Take care.